What's going on, everybody? Barrett here with Spec of Tech. Welcome to the channel. I recently did the review of the SVS PB17 monster 17-inch subwoofer, and you guys had a lot of questions of how that subwoofer stacked up to some of the other subwoofers that I've measured in the front right-hand corner of my room. So I've decided to give you guys what you want. I'm going to compare the SVS PB17 measurements to a series of other subwoofer measurements that I've done in my room. Keep in mind that these measurements were all done in the front right-hand corner of my room without any room calibration, and I will do a series of them, so I'll try and link some of the videos if I've already got some done in the top right hand corner of this video. At the end of this video, there will also be some links that you can click on to the series of videos, but you could also just go to my channel and they will be the most recent videos listed on my channel. So with all that said, today we're going to be comparing the SVS PB17 to the Monster JTR CAP2400. Now keep in mind that again, these are not going to be always apples to apples comparisons. In this case, the JTR is more expensive than the SVS subwoofer, but I will list their basic specs and price up on your screen so that you can see some of those basic specs. If you'd like to see more detailed information about the subwoofers, I have dropped links down in the description below. Once we've had a look at some of the basic information on these subwoofers, we're going to hop over on my computer and have a look at these measurements. Again, keep in mind that I did not have any room calibration for either of these subwoofers, and the subwoofers were measured in the front right hand corner of my room. Alright, so now that we're over on my computer, let's have a look at the JTR 2400 with the room size set to small and large, with the SVS PB17 in standard mode. Okay, so we got a lot of measurements here. So this is the JTR with room size set to large, these measurements up here. So let's start there. First, let's see where the JTR is compressing with the room size set to large. So basically what this does is this increases the low end. So it's kind of like putting the PB17 into extended mode, which we will have a look at yet. But I just wanted to show you guys both, having it compared to both, because the JTR doesn't really have the traditional settings like the SVS or the Tonewinner. It has a room size dial. But in this case, as you can see, this blue line is clearly compressing because it is getting closer to the green line, so we can't use that one. The green line does seem to be pretty good, but there is some slight compression there, and I was fairly strict before, so we won't use the green line. We'll use this orange line on the JTR. So this orange line is going to be the max output with the room size set to large for the JTR. So let's just remember that orange line. And then we want to go to the PB17. So let's highlight these. So this is in standard mode for the PB17. Let's just get rid of this orange line for now. So the PB17 clearly compressing on this orange line. We can't use that one. The blue line looks pretty good, but there does seem to be some slight compression. So we won't keep the blue line because we were strict on the JTR. So we're going to use that green line as our max output in standard mode. And then here is the JTR. So basically you're going to see some major divergence here from the JTR starting at about 15 hertz because it's giving you a bit of a house curve when you set the room size to large. It's limiting the high output or the higher frequency output and giving you more in the low end. So it's kind of giving you a house curve, whereas the PB17 is trying to give you somewhat of a linear response here from what it looks like, about 20 hertz and down. So you are getting much more output in the higher frequencies on the PB17 in this mode versus the JTR in this mode. But just out of curiosity, we have the 20 hertz, 113.5 on the PB17 and the JTR at 99.8. At 32 hertz, we're looking at about 105 on the JTR and 115 on the PB17. So this is noticeable output that you will notice in the higher frequencies, but this output down here, like at 10 hertz, you still have 105 dB on the JTR, whereas the PB17 is already down at 89 dB. So this output's going to shake your room. You won't hear it, but it will shake your room. But again, keep in mind, this is with the kind of the house curve setting on the JTR, which is maximizing the low end or increasing the low end, and this is standard mode on the PB17. I gotta say though, the PB17 is holding its own here. I was kind of surprised to see this. I was thinking the JTR would have more, or at least be closer, even in these higher frequencies. But let's have a look what the JTR looks like with the room size set to small, because there is a big difference there. So we can keep the PB17, so this green line, we'll just remember that. And then this is with the room size set to small on the JTR, which gives you a lot more output. I do remember being very surprised at the JTR here when I put the room size to small. It pretty much doesn't really compress. This green line does have some ever so slight compression, so we're going to use the orange line as our max line with the room size set to small, but there wasn't a whole lot of compression on that green line either. and then the PB17 was this line here. So again, it's bringing up this frequency or the higher frequencies on the JTR, and it's getting a lot closer to the PB17, and then from 15 hertz down, again, the JTR is still giving you more. Even with the room size set to small, it's still giving you a lot more low end than the PB17 in standard mode. So pretty surprising for the SVS PB17 to be holding its own against the JTR, but again, I was being super strict on the compression with the JTR. It is an impressive subwoofer, no question whatsoever. But let's have a look at how they compare with the PB17 in extended and sealed mode with the JTR in small and room size large as well. Okay, so let's clear the room size set to small first for the JTR, and clear all these other measurements. Sorry guys, it looks a little bit busy, but we'll try and clean this up a bit. Okay, so this is with the room size set to large again, and as we remember, this blue line was definitely compressing. The green line was compressing a little as well. That's right, we were strict on it, so we cleared that one. So the orange line is what we're going to use as our max output with the JTR with room size set to large. So now let's have a look at the PB17 in extended mode. So this is with the PB17 increasing its low end, similar to how the JTR does with its room size set to large. So let's clear this orange line for now at -17. All right, so clearly this teal line is compressing. This brown line is also compressing. They're much closer. The blue line does seem to be pretty good. Again, guys, this isn't super scientific, so don't hold it against me if there was half a dB or whatever of compression. And then the orange line on the JTR. So as you can see, this brings the PB17 a lot closer to the JTR as far as low end goes. So at 12.8 hertz is where they start to diverge, and then by 10 hertz you're at 105 dB on the JTR and 98.3 on the SVS. So it does roll off a lot steeper than the JTR, because the JTR is still giving you decent output. Here at 8 hertz you're over 100 dB. So the JTR is impressive when it comes to low end, but the SVS is still giving you more in these higher frequencies. So above 12.8 hertz, the SVS is holding its own. I'm quite surprised. I'm not going to lie. I'm quite surprised at how well the SVS is doing here versus the JTR CAP2400. Let's have a look of it in room size small. Okay, so I remember the green line was the one that had some ever so slight compression, so we didn't keep that. We kept the orange line. So let's keep that. And here you have the JTR with the room size set to small versus the SVS PB17 in extended or deep mode, which gives you more deep or low end. So you can see they diverge here at about 28 hertz to about 10 hertz. They're about the same with the JTR set to small, but the JTR is much more equal in these higher frequencies now versus the lower frequencies. So again, quite surprising for the SVS PB17 to be holding its own against the JTR. And again, keep in mind, guys, this is the measurements only. I'm not comparing sound quality because it's been a while since I've had the JTR, and I'd be basing it off memory, and our audio memory is not very good. So I'm not going to talk about sound quality or anything like that. What I'm showing you guys is merely the output. All right, so now let's have a look at, just out of curiosity, the PB17 in sealed mode versus the JTR. Again, not apples to apples, but let's just have a look. So this orange line is the room size set to small, so let's just clear that. The red line clearly compressing, this purple line clearly compressing. We'll keep that purple line. And then for the room size small. So here you have the SVS PB17 in sealed mode. Still doing all right against the JTR, but the JTR is starting to look a lot better here now. More output pretty much across the board with the room size set to small. And then I believe it was this orange line as well with the room size set to large. As you can see, it's giving you more output down low, but a little bit less in the higher frequencies. So that's pretty much all the measurements we have for the SVS PB17 versus the JTR. And again, I have to give it to SVS. They really increased their performance on this PB17 to where you're getting close and even beating the JTR CAP2400 in some areas. The JTR CAP2400 is still better in the low end. I can give you guys a little bit of anecdotal comparison here versus the JTR. The JTR did shake my room more violently, and I'm guessing that's because it has so much more in this low end. This infrasonic bass is what shakes your room, but you don't necessarily hear it. And the JTR does have significantly more. So that's probably why I do remember it shaking my room a little bit more violently than the SVS PB17. Not to say that the PB17 does not shake my room violently, because it absolutely does. You guys saw that on the review video. But the JTR did give me a little bit more, and that's probably because it has more infrasonic bass. But not as much as I thought. But I have to say, I'm quite impressed with the PB17 versus the JTR here. I'll let you guys make your own minds up as to what you think, but I'm quite impressed, to be honest with you. But there you have the measurements for the JTR CAP2400 versus the SVS PB17. I hope that you guys did find those room measurements helpful. Again, it's not always going to be apples to apples, but it's what you guys asked for. You wanted to see how the PB17s measured up to some of the other subwoofers, so that's what I'm showing you. I'm not saying that all these subwoofers are comparable or should be compared. I'm just showing the information that you guys wanted to know. If you guys are interested in learning more about these subwoofers or more detailed specs of these subwoofers, I have dropped links to them down in the description below. If you guys are interested in purchasing one of these subwoofers, please do consider using my links. It really doesn't cost you guys anything extra, but it does really help out the channel so that I can keep bringing you guys this information. Make sure that you guys do stay tuned on the channel, because this is a series of videos where I'm comparing the PB17 to several other subwoofers that I've measured in my room. There will be links at the end of this video that you can click on to see some of those other videos, but make sure that you subscribe and tick the bell icon so that you will be notified when I drop some of the other comparisons of the PB17 to the other subwoofers. And remember to enjoy your systems. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.